I used to have a very special friend back in my primary school. I can't even remember his name, but there's one thing that stood out from him. He was the only kid in class that was outcasted. There was nobody who tried to talk to him just because of his poverty. As a young kid, naturally, I also tried to avoid him somehow. But the older I got, the more I realized that I have treated him so badly. That this feeling of regret followed me for such a long time, long enough for me to understand that kids like us have unnoticeably learned the perception of classes and started to discriminate against someone we assumed is the lower class than us. Thinking of him helped me to realize how terribly class discrimination has affected our innocent kids like us, and how ineffective we are at fixing it. As surprising as it may sound, social inequality still manifests itself in many different aspects, such as religion, gender, race, and so on, no matter how developed and progressive we get. Social inequality is still present, forcing people from different populations to deal with numbers of disadvantages and even leading to modern economic crisis. Although that classism was not a controversial topic in those days, but we have to admit that years ago, even before the French Revolution, it has always been there. It has always existed in our society, shaped the misconceptions of us in the reality we live in. Discrimination based on people's background, or we call classism, can include our attitudes, our behaviors towards somebody's background, or a system of policies that we set up to benefit only the upper class at the expense of the lower class. Let's talk a bit about media. Media has been both a good and a bad influence on this problem. Many of us grew up picking misconceptions from films and movies. Media tend to portray discrimination towards the lower class as something natural. Remember last time you go on your social media, surfing at those stunning and charming pictures from your favorite models or actors. You immediately assumed they are the concept of talented and successful people, while thinking yourself just someone poor and untalented. But nowadays, there is a movie called Parasite, an Oscars winner movie, which has took an in-depth look into the classist structures of South Korea by following this poor family conning their way into working for the non-affluent family. This shows a raw truth that no matter how hard the lower class tried to climb up the social ladder, they are always pushed back down. There's another fact we can learn from this is classism. The misconceptions still exist, still latent in each person's perception, in our perceptions. This has long been in a topic of social studies. Let's talk about the Longitudinal Internet Studies of Social Science, LISS, has pointed out that despite living in a rich and egalitarian country like Dutch, over 20% of the participants in a Dutch internet panel perceived some kind of classism, and those were the lower class, are most likely to be discriminated by the higher ones. Especially in the workplace, classism can create numbers of disadvantages in salaries for the low-level workers. This leads to economic crisis. Let's take Mexico for an example. Nowadays, successive Mexican governments have to face with the enormous challenge of inequality. 10% of the richest people in that country hold over 43% of the country's total income, while the 10% poorest hold less than just 2%. You can see what the problem is here. So what has classism left us with? What are the consequences? Well, the damaging impact are felt in such areas as employment, education, and economics. This has shaped a belief, an ideology in our head, in our society that continues to pass from generation to generation and most likely to never stop. Classism also have a harming effect on our children as well. According to the University of Wisconsin, the poorer the teen, the more they experience discrimination at school and the worse their health was. They and their families are left with insecure lives, suffering while remaining unheard from us. The big question is, what can we do and what should we do at the moment? First and foremost, listening. We have to start listening to those voices, the voices that been unheard for centuries. The awareness of the need to build a fair society have to be raised. People have to know that we are dealing with a real problem, and we have to get the problem out there to the public and start talking about it. Secondly is countries must consider changes. Try to eliminate policies that disadvantage low-level workers. Let's take the UK for a great example. They are now outlaw classism in case to create career changes for people from a less privileged background to realize their potential, their talents. People around the world are changing. They have started to do more charity, giving away their heart and wealth. You can see that positive movements are being made. This slowly but surely will change the world somehow. But for now, I want to close your eyes for just a tiny moment. Imagine a different world by asking yourself those questions. What if the government starts working on discrimination now? What if we do not ignore the problem now? If you can picture a world where every crisis and negativity would be nothing but history, you're on the right track to solve this. Everybody hoping for a brighter future. Looking forward to one day that our backgrounds will no longer define who we are, our majestic dreams and wills. One day that poverty and economic problems will overcome most of itself. One day that you go on your social media not comparing yourself higher or lower than anyone else. One day, your children will come to school without suffering from psychological trauma, receive the best education without feeling ashamed. Every society, in order to develop, needs different kind of people, different types of dreams. That's true. But those differences have to be respected and appreciated. This is not a story from only myself, but from many people out there who are suffering from discrimination, trying their best to climb up the ladder day and night. I'm just a young person. I'm also a student among every student here today and out there. But I'm sure that we can see and feel how unfair this society is, and now is the moment we should take action. Because we owe them, the people, an apology, and I owe my old friend an apology for not realizing that they are meant to be as happy and successful as us. With the perception changing and the willingness to change, the world will also change to become a better place. Thank you.